Crack on. So, welcome everyone. This is 10 ways to sell more online during a lockdown. Appreciate you being here. Have you noticed this time round a lot of people are kind of a bit lower, they're not quite as energetic, perhaps a little bit more negative, perhaps a little bit more worried than they were during the first lockdown. So, I did a webinar.
You're muted, Janet.
Right, sorry everyone, didn't realise I was muted. I'm going to start again. So welcome to 10 ways to sell more online during a lockdown. I don't know if any of you noticed, but during the first lockdown, although it was very tough on people, I think there was a sort of, we're in it together, we're going to get through it. Whereas in the second lockdown, I think a lot of people are genuinely quite worried that this is going to be something that's going to go on and on and on and on. So I've got some tips here which I shared with people on the first lockdown, but I've also got some slightly different ones on how to get out of second lockdown thriving, not just surviving. So this is being recorded. You will have access to it on YouTube afterwards if you missed anything. Don't worry, you can turn your cameras off if you need to. I won't be asking you complicated questions. I might get you to put something in the chat, but that's it. So thank you for being here. Let's crack on. So technique number one is to give value. There's a lot of people out there at the moment who, a bit like in the first lockdown, they're giving stuff for free. Well, it doesn't mean you have to give away your paid stuff for free, but you can provide extra. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can share knowledge and you can give free advice. There's a lot of appetite at the moment for how-tos. You can do that through things like webinars. You can do it through social media. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and one of the things that gets me the most engagement is plain text contributions, especially the ones that I hashtag with sales tips. You could also do podcasts. I've collaborated on a couple of those. And then you've got articles, videos, blogs, anything you can think of to share your expertise so that people will come to you as someone who knows what they're talking about. And here's the really important bit. Don't expect anything in return. If you are doing this as a cynical way to gather new customers or to increase your mailing list, well, it might work, but it doesn't always leave such a good taste in the mouth. So I would encourage you, do this from a perspective of, I'm going to share knowledge, I'm going to share information, I'm going to try and make people's lives a little bit better, and they might then remember me when the time comes that they need to use me. And the nice thing about not doing anything with the expectation you'll get something in return is actually you do sometimes find that happens. I helped a lady at the business show 2 years ago. I just sat down and chatted with her for about half an hour giving her advice. And 2 months ago, out the blue, she rang me up and said, I'm ready to work with you now. I want you to be my business coach. And I had no expectation at all that would happen. So that is tip number one. Okay, tip number two is about being human. Now, look, remember, there's a lot of fear out there at the moment. People are bereaved. People that they care about have got sick, injured relatives. It's not very nice. Even if there is a lack of certainty, people hope that the future will be better. But what if they haven't got money? What if they're worried they're going to lose their job? Hi, Leslie. What if they're under pressure to do things that they didn't even know were going to happen? The whole future is quite uncertain at the moment. So people are uncertain. People often don't have money. People are under pressure. So that's why it's important to be human. So what practical things can you do? Well, whatever your shop front is, show the real you. Don't hide behind some sort of corporate cladding to try and be an image of something you're not. Be a real human being. And that means stuff like empathizing. It means not being in a rush. So give people time. Now, I've shared quite widely that during the first lockdown, I had my 2 best months ever since my business launched 8 months ago. And I'm absolutely certain that one of the reasons for that is that I had conversations with people. So whereas before lockdown, it might have been 30 seconds or a minute, people suddenly had time. So what did I do? I gave them time. So if someone wanted to talk to me for half an hour, I talked to them for half an hour. And I didn't do the thing that I tend to do with my personality style. In fact, Jerry will understand this because he's got a similar personality profile to me. Usually I'd be straight in there, let's get down to business. Not during lockdown. This time, people want to talk, let them talk, because everyone's world has changed so differently during the pandemic. So people need time again because we're in lockdown again. Now, here's another one. Remember details. A big part of being human is showing that you're a nice person. And if you're building a relationship with someone, how can you do that if you don't remember details? So it's stuff like, did someone in your family get sick? Well, what was the name of that family member? Remember it. Now, look, you can write it down. I'm not saying you have to kind of contain everything in your head, but you can write it down. And that way you can recall it should you need it. And another way is to offer help. And all I'm talking about here in terms of offering help is say, what can I do to help? So often when I have a meeting with someone and they'll say something to me like, what is it that you want, Janet, or how can I help you? So I'll tell them, and then I'll say, thank you for that. So what can I do to help you? And you know what? So many people are really surprised that I even bother asking that question. And half the time the answer is nothing. But you know what? Maybe it is something. Maybe it's just connecting somebody with somebody else, which doesn't cost us anything, but people remember it in the long term. So be human, because there's a lot of people out there who are taking advantage at this time, and your humanity is one of the things that will make you stand out. So tip number 3 is follow up. Now this is a very well-known slide here, and all I really want you to concentrate on is the very first statistic and the very last statistic, because there is quite a lot of data on here. But 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. Now these are people whose job it is to sell. I'm not talking about maybe you guys who have your own business and need to sell because you've got to do everything. I'm talking about people whose job it is to sell. They're paid to do sales stuff, and follow-up is a huge part of the job. So if you have outstanding quotes, outstanding proposals, or someone said ring back, do it, because most people are not, and that'll give you a huge advantage. And then I want to draw your attention to the very last statistic, which is that 80% of sales are made on the 5th to the 12th contact. So what that means is you need to be what we call touching people. So touch is anytime they have a contact with you. So it could be they look at your website, or they read a flyer, or they see something of yours on social media, or you ring them, or you email them, or they click on an article or a blog. All these things count as touches. So I would encourage you, start using the phone a bit more. People are really frightened of the phone, but I'll tell you what's happening. With emails, the open rate isn't fantastic. And I'm not telling you to do cold calling. You can do cold calling if you want. There's one person on here who I know loves cold calling, but he is very unusual. And he's smiling at me. So, but most people hate it. So I'm not encouraging you to do something you hate, because your energy will be wrong. But look, if someone's reached out to you, it's not called cold calling anymore. It's called following up. So have a reason to follow up. And here's a couple of tips on that. Never just check in. It's a bit sort of lame. It's a bit meh. And, what's the point in that? Have a reason. Hello, John, I'm ringing because 3 months ago you said a good time to call you back would be the middle of November. How's things? That is being purposeful and professional, and you're saying up front what it is you're calling about. But if you ring and say, I'm just checking in, the person on the phone's going, there's probably an agenda here. And there probably is, because you've been too shy to say. So be really upfront about it. And also be consistent with your follow-up. If someone says, oh, can't speak to you now, call me next week, call them next week. Use your diary so you know when to. You could also use your CRM. But also don't become a stalker. Know when to stop. And one technique you can use if you don't get through to people straight away, and you feel like you're keeping ringing and keeping leaving messages, or keep emailing them, is to actually ask them and say, look, I'm really worried. I'm a bit scared I'm turning into a stalker. Would you advise me? Am I trying to contact you too much? And that changes the sort of power balance. And most people go, oh, sorry, it's my fault. I should have called you back, because we're British and we say stuff like that. And suddenly you will have their attention because they feel a little bit bad, because all you've been doing is being super professional. And then finally, to do with following up, I'm going to encourage you to try and get no's from people. I'm going to encourage you to try and get people to say, no, I don't want to work with you. Why is that? Well, ideally, we'd like a yes, but actually, yes being top choice, I'd say no is my next best choice, because if they've said no to you, you can leave them be and stop wasting your time, and you can focus on all the people who've gone maybe, or I need more information, or now's not the right time, but I am interested. That lot in the middle. So don't be afraid of no's, because they free up your time, and then you can respectfully withdraw, and that person will appreciate your professionalism. Okay then, so the next technique is consider having joint ventures with people. And what do I mean by joint ventures? Well, who do you know who has the same customers as you? So I'm not talking about people you're in competition with. I am talking about people who could potentially refer you business. And there's lots of advantages to this. It gives you access to new markets. You share the risks and the costs. You get access to new knowledge, new expertise. It can be a temporary arrangement, but it can also be an extremely long-term arrangement. And then long-term, if the thing works really well and they love what it is you're selling, you may even have the opportunity to sell outright what you do to the other company. Also, a big one for us entrepreneurs and sole traders is you won't be alone, because a lot of our business journey is on our own. Just watch out that the rules are clear and try and avoid obvious culture clashes, and you may well find that the partnership is unbalanced if one partner has a lot more money or time or resource to chuck at it. They can be absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to give you some examples of the sorts of things I mean. So if you're in the wedding industry, let's say you're a wedding photographer, who can you work with? Well, caterers, florists, wedding dress providers, jewelers, hairdressers, nail technicians all work within the wedding industry. No competition there. Okay, accepting that this has eased off a bit during the second lockdown too, but it's really here more as an example. I'm in a business networking group called BNI, which is Business Networking International, and in one of our groups they call them the wedding mafia, but every time someone gets a hint that someone's getting married, a whole team of people swoop in to literally do everything from A to Z to do with that wedding. And the clients love it because it's simple, because they're being referred to trusted partners. So another example is, what if you're moving house? Well, maybe you're an estate agent. So what people could you work with who would be useful to liaise with, who could give you leads and who you could give leads to? So think about mortgage advisors, solicitors, cleaners, people who do house clearance, removal companies, painters, decorators. You see, these are all people, same customers, but no conflict. And then here's another example. Let's say you're in the field of weight loss. So who has clients that are also trying to lose weight? Well, personal trainers, food supplement providers, image consultants, women's wear, life coach. All suggestions, people who could be great referral partners for you. So as you know, I'm an expert in sales and in particular closing, so I really enjoy working with marketers, because marketers are great at lead generation, but often their clients can't close the deals. And what happens? The client thinks that the marketer is not doing their job, which is absolutely not the case. The marketer is doing their job perfectly well, generating leads, but often the customer can't close those deals. So this is where I jump in. I'll provide some training, or perhaps I'll do a done for you service, and then that fulfills a need. So I'm a big fan of joint ventures. Okay, number 5. Have proper goals in place. Now look, this might not sound sexy, it might not sound exciting, but things are changing at the moment. So if you want to maintain the revenue you used to have, or perhaps you want to grow your revenue, or you need to work out what's the minimum you can survive on, you have got to have goals. And that's why I've got a picture of a map behind this slide, because in the same way that if you were going to travel on a journey, you'd have a plan, you'd have a roadmap, you'd have a goal, you need to be able to plan in your business. So I'm going to suggest to you, start off with, what do you want to earn? Now that could be you individually, or it could be your company as a whole. But anyone who works in sales will tell you that we work out our sales targets backwards. So if the company needs to earn £1 million and we've got 5 salespeople, we'll go, right, very simple example, but we'll say, okay, each salesperson has to bring in £200,000. And then we'd say, well, which months of the year are they going to do this? And it could be that some months have a bigger target and some months have a smaller target. So for instance, if you are very seasonally affected, perhaps you do a lot of your business in November and December because of Christmas, it may well be that the targets for the rest of the year are lower, and then in November and December they go up. And that is the job of whoever is planning the sales revenue for the business. Now, if you're on your own, that's you. So have that in mind. What do you want to earn? So let's say it is £1 million. Nice round number. We like round numbers. What is your average sale? Now, if your average sale is £100 and your target is £1 million, you've got to sell a lot of units. If your average sale is something like £100,000, you've only got to sell 10 of those in a year. And if you're looking at me going, well, look, I've got lots of different price points, take the average or take the best seller, because then what you can do is work backwards and you can say, okay, well, if I want to earn this amount of money and I know my average sale is this, I can identify how many of that product or that service I need to sell. And then you can say, you can calculate things like, how good am I at converting? If I have a sales conversation with someone, how many do I convert? So if you convert 1 in 5, then suddenly you need to multiply the amount of sales by 5 conversations. Work backwards again. How many phone calls, emails, or whatever do you need to have to get in front of people? And when I say in front, on Zoom or on the phone, to have a sales conversation. Maybe it's 1 in 10, maybe it's 1 in 100. I don't know what your figures are. And from that, you can identify how much activity you need to be having, or how much marketing spend you need to have. And now you need to factor in lockdown. So if those statistics were you in the normal world, how will lockdown affect it? And you've had 3 months of it, so you've probably got a fair idea of what lockdown actually means. So if your sales drop 10%, you know you've got to do something to compensate for that 10%, either in terms of activity or getting better at converting, or perhaps spending more on marketing. So you've got to have a goal. Tip number 7, don't drop your prices. Now, if you're looking at me going, is she crazy? Everyone's offering stuff for free. Don't panic. You need to hold your nerve. I've got a question for you. Do Tesco give discounts? Are Amazon giving discounts? Actually, I wrote this. I put Marks and Spencer on there, but apparently they didn't do very well this year, did they? But look, the point is, the big companies, by and large, are holding their prices. Now, I accept that some sectors are really, really in pain at the moment. Okay, but why should you give your stuff away for free? All right, I've charged a tenner for this. You've turned up. Okay, it won't break the bank, but I've kept my sales training at the same price. I've kept my coaching packages at the same price. People are still buying them. There are a proportion of people who will only ever buy the most expensive thing. And an example I give is to ask yourself, if you were a company, if you were a shop rather, if you were a retail shop, where would you match yourself? Are you the pound shop? Are you John Lewis? Or are you Harrods? And the reason I'm asking you that is the Harrods customers ain't going to the pound shop. Okay, the John Lewis customers probably not going to Harrods. So if you are charging free or cheap, you're going to get the people who can only afford the free or cheap. But if you ramp your prices up, you're going to get the sort of people who go to John Lewis. And you might decide that you're at the very premium end of the market and you offer a crazy price. And the people who go to Harrods will pay that. Ask yourself, does anyone need a piece of jewellery worth £500,000? No one needs it, but there is still a proportion of people who'd be prepared to pay that. So on a more practical level, something that you can relate to perhaps is look for ways to add value. So don't go down the discounting route. Instead, think about what you could do for extra. So for example, I now record all of my training and all my webinars, and I make it available to people to listen to at their leisure through YouTube. I mentioned that in the beginning. I also give handouts. I can put in extra sessions. If somebody wants a one-to-one with me after the training, I can do that. But what I'm absolutely not going to do is give a discount. Now, having said that, something I did do at the beginning of the first lockdown, I do LinkedIn training as well. And as an experiment, I advertised my LinkedIn training. And I said, if you're on furlough and you'd like to do this, but you're a bit worried about money, make me an offer. It's just between you and me. It can be a tiny percentage. It can be very nearly the whole price. It can be somewhere in the middle. You make me an offer and I will accept that. And really, really interesting, I did get a lot of people come forward and go on my LinkedIn training, and most of them paid about 75% of the value. I would have accepted pretty much whatever they wanted to offer. But this was about, do you remember that point earlier about being human and understanding that people are sometimes in a bit of a hole? And do you know what? I think that'll pay off long term. Remember that other point I made about not doing things expecting to get something back? There's a good chance that a year or two down the line, someone might say, oh yeah, I remember Janet, she helped me during lockdown. Now I want to work with her because things are a bit better. Or often they say they want to work with me because things are a bit worse and they know I can fix it. But the point here is, if you are decent, usually it does come back. What goes round comes round. You're nasty and you rip people off, that will come back to haunt you as well. So hold your nerve, don't drop your prices. Okay, number 7. Now, you would be surprised how badly some customers answer the phone. One of the services I do with my colleague Boyd, who is on here tonight, is we do mystery calls. We've done a lot of work with estate agents. And one of the reasons we get to do so much training with estate agents is that part of our package is doing mystery calls. And when you ring these people, so many of them don't know the absolute basics about answering the phone. So there's a lot more steps to it than this, but I'm going to give you the really, really simple bits. If someone calls you and you don't recognize the number, it's a bit different if it's your friend, obviously, but if someone rings you and it's a potential customer, this is what you should do. A 4-part greeting. Good morning, good afternoon, name of company, your name, and how may I help? So if it was me, good afternoon, Tadpole Training, Janet speaking, how may I help? So really simple, and there's no reason why all of your staff can't do that. So person on the end of the phone says, I want to buy your widget, I want to use your services, whatever it is. This is what you and your staff should be trained to respond by doing. Yes, we can definitely help with that. Now that bit provides reassurance. It's professional, it's confident, they've rung the right place. Yeah, we can definitely help with that. My name is Janet. Who am I speaking with, please? Now, my name is, repeat your name, because they didn't hear it the first time, because I promise you, hardly anyone ever remembers it. But also by giving your name again, you can ask for their name without it seeming a bit weird. So let's have a look at this again. Yes, we can definitely help with that. My name is Janet. Who am I speaking with, please? And they'll give you their name. So now this is what you do. Thank you, whatever their name is. Let's call the person John. Thank you, John. And just in case we get cut off, what's the best number to get you on? Right, so I have demonstrated that I've listened and understood that his name is John. That's good manners and that's polite. And also, if they have got a difficult name, it's an opportunity to just make sure you've got the pronunciation correct, or perhaps ask to spell it if you're struggling, which is fine. Now, what about this just in case we get cut off bit? Well, the reason for that is if you just go, what's your phone number? That's a little bit harsh, isn't it? Sorry, I just muted myself because I was trying to let someone in. Hold on. Right, if you just go, what's your phone number? That is quite a harsh, hard statement. But I learned this the hard way working in an international college where people rang us overseas and were always just connecting with us and then getting cut off. So this is how you qualify it. Just in case we get cut off, what's the best number to get you on? Now it gets their phone number, but it also gets their best number. And the reason you ask for their best number is, what if they're ringing you about something at work and you want to get back to them and you can't because it's the work number and it's the weekend? And usually when you say what's your best number, most people will give you their mobile, which is obviously the best number. Okay. And the next thing you can ask them, and again, people don't do this, but it's really powerful and it will give you some good data. And would you tell me, please, who recommended you to us? I'll stop there. Would you tell me, please, who recommended you to us? Now, what you're doing there is, it's called an assumption. You're assuming someone recommended them to you. Well, it doesn't matter if they did or they didn't. That positions you as the sort of organisation where you do get recommended a lot. Now, if they go, yeah, it was my friend Bill, or it was, I saw you on Google, or I saw you on Facebook, right? You've just gathered some great marketing data. But here's the thing, even if they haven't been personally recommended to you, by saying that statement, you can then qualify it by going, the reason I ask is that most of our customers come to us through personal recommendation. And there you've got it again, positioning as the sort of company that people come to. And what if you're going, well, actually, most of my customers don't come to me through personal recommendation. I don't want to lie. Good. I don't want you to lie either. So just tweak the words. Maybe you want to say, a lot of our customers come to us through personal recommendation. So use whatever works for you. But actually, when you start to ask this question, you'll find out where people come from. And when I had an international college, between 90 and 95% of our students on one of our courses came to us through personal recommendation, which is an extraordinary amount. And there's no surprise that that was the most profitable and most popular course that we had. So make sure you answer the phone properly. I have got some more phone tips, but that will get you into at least the position of having a conversation with people. Right then, tip number 8. Don't rely on one big account. So what do I mean by that? Think about it. What would happen if you lose your biggest customer? What proportion of your revenue would you lose? And it's not just about money. If you employ staff, would it mean you have to make people redundant? would it mean you have to go bankrupt? There's big stuff going on here. So you've got to be realistic. Now, it might be that you let the customer down and they leave, or it might be an external factor. Interesting statistic I picked up a couple of weeks ago, actually. I'm sure you're familiar with Snapchat. Even if you don't use it, you're aware of it. And there's a good chance you're familiar with Kylie Jenner, even if you don't follow her. I will admit I don't follow her. And this is what happened. Kylie Jenner was not happy with Snapchat's new design. So I think she tweeted about it. I'm not sure where she put it. Anyway, she posted about it. And as a result, Snapchat's stock lost 6% of its value overnight, and that was the equivalent of $1.3 billion, because she was one of Snapchat's most influential users. So sometimes stuff can happen that's totally out of your control, and I would suggest a global pandemic is probably out of your control too. But be sensible about these things. Make sure you've constantly got a pipeline of new stuff coming through to prevent you relying on one account. Because if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm okay because I've got this big account, you might not be, and you might not even see it's coming. So protect yourself. Okay. Number 9. Number 9 is upsell and cross-sell. All right, so I've just told you to make sure you've got a pipeline of new customers, but I also don't want you to absolutely exhaust yourself chasing new customers when you may be able to get business from existing customers. So what are upselling and cross-selling? Well, if you've ever been to McDonald's and you say, I want a meal, upselling is when they sell you a bigger or a better version of the same thing. So a McDonald's upsell would be, would you like a large meal? So same thing, but bigger or better. If you go to McDonald's, for instance, and you just say, I want a meal, they might cross-sell you, which is adding something else to it. For instance, by saying, would you like a McFlurry? See how down with the kids I am. I know what it's called. I kept saying ice cream before. So they might sell you, I don't know, an apple pie or just an extra something. So it's not a bigger version. Bigger version is upsell. Extra something is a cross-sell. And the ideal sweet spot for either an upsell or a cross-sell is no more than about 25% of the value of the main thing they've bought for you. So I'm going to give you some statistics, make you think about it. It costs 6 to 7 times as much to acquire a new customer as it does to retain an existing one. And the reason for that expenditure gap is that trying to get new customers costs money. That's where your marketing budget goes, because not everyone turns into a customer. So whether it's pay-per-click or it's traditional advertising, or maybe it's having a sales team to do it for you, it costs money to get new people through the door. Whereas if you've got existing customers, relatively speaking, they're much cheaper to look after. There's a 60 to 70% chance of selling to an existing customer compared to 5 to 20% for a new one. So if you've got a new product, say, and you pitch it out there to people who've not used you compared to people who have used you, that's what this is talking about. There's a 60% to 70% chance that existing customers will use you, assuming you've done a good job. This is the biggie. It works. I'm not sure if Amazon is the biggest company in the world, but it's there or thereabouts, isn't it? Amazon get 35% of their sales by cross-selling. If you've ever bought something on Amazon or any online shop, you'll see it. So you'll buy, I don't know, a camera, and Amazon will then prompt with a message that says something like, customers who bought that also bought this, or would you like to look at? And you know what? It does work, because I've done it. I've bought stuff I don't need. So they've got my money. I've got stuff I don't need. I probably won't return it because I don't get buyer's remorse quickly enough. And it's a very simple thing to do. So what can you either upsell or cross-sell yourself? So if I give you the example of my sales training, for example, so that's £395, on the checkout section of Eventbrite, I offer my book, which is £10, and a proportion of people buy it. Now, it's not a massive amount of money, but it's still sales that I wouldn't have got if I'd not bothered to put it on there. So what things can you add to what you do already? Well, I've just told you about McDonald's, and they have literally made millions just by asking, would you like fries with that? We don't get offended. We don't get upset. We don't say someone's trying to manipulate us, because they do it in a very customer focused way. And they also don't mind if you say no. And that's the trick as well. Don't get offended if someone doesn't say anything. I mean, cars are the same. You go and buy a new car, you'll work out the budget. It's standard industry practice. You'll agree the car you want, you'll agree the price, and then they say, would you like metallic paint? Would you like this feature? Would you like that feature? And suddenly the value of the thing's bumped up by £500,000 because it works. So look, here's something else too. I'm extremely busy at the moment, perhaps you are. If you can't handle more customers, get your existing ones to increase their spend. It's better for your time management. And then finally, tip number 10, and it might be a surprising one, but review and continually improve. Obviously, you don't want to lose existing customers. So by having the capacity to either do customer satisfaction surveys or to get feedback, honest feedback, so that means the bad stuff as well as the good, then it will help you be agile and change things, be more competitive. So your competitors might be obsessing about what you're doing instead of how they can improve. It will probably mean that you're providing much better customer service. And what did I say at the beginning? At the moment, people want human beings who are prepared to build relationships with them. And also surveys are a great opportunity to engage with customers. And the statistics show that all this makes great business sense. Happy customers will return. And if you've got satisfied customers, you're likely to have a much lower employee turnover because it's a nicer place to work. So those are my 10 tips. I'm just going to summarize them for you, and then there's time for some questions. So what are the 10 tips? Give value. Give tips, advice, share your knowledge. Do not expect anything in return. Number 2, be human. People are struggling out there at the moment. A lot of people are in real pain. Be empathetic, give them time, allow them to speak. Expect to help, ask to help. Tip number 3 is follow up. Use a variety of methods. Don't just rely on emailing, mix it up a bit, phone calls, texts, but do follow up and diarise it so you're organised about it without turning into a stalker. Tip number 4 was have joint ventures. Who can you work with who shares the same clients with you but would not provide a conflict? You can share the load, you can get new contacts, you can get new business, and it can be the most extraordinary, effective way to work. Number 5 is make sure you've got proper goals in place. And if you know that the pandemic has affected your ability to trade and that revenue is down, you can now plan for the extra things you need to do to bring it back up to where it should be. Number 6 is don't drop your prices. Hold your nerve. Instead of dropping prices, provide extra value or provide extra things. And remember, if you drop your prices, are you telling the world that you're the pound shop when really you want to be John Lewis or perhaps you're Harrods? Number 7 is answer the phone properly and make sure your staff are answering the phone properly. You want to come across as professional, but you also want to gather the very important data like the name and the phone number of the person who's calling. Number 8 is don't rely on one big account. If you let them down or if they close, because there is a global pandemic going on, then you may very well struggle and you may go under. So make sure there's always a pipeline of alternatives. Number 9 is upsell and cross-sell. You could add about 20% to 30% of your income just through selling more to existing customers. So it's good for them and it's cheaper for you. And then finally, number 10 is review and continually improve, especially for small businesses. If you can show agility at times like this, that is what will ensure your survival. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm going to open it now to see if there's any questions. I am going to do a quick plug for my next training, which is on the 23rd of November. That's my course, How to Sell. If you're interested, just put a yes in the chat. We can contact you afterwards. Or I've put my phone number up there. If you send me a text to that number, then I will get back to you, or I'll get my colleague Saz to ring you. She's the expert on that training. But for now, that's it, and thank you. So I'm gonna, can I unmute everybody? I probably can unmute you all, but I don't know how to do it. Oh yeah, I can unmute you all. So I'm gonna unmute everyone, and I'm gonna invite you, if you have any questions, to please let me know what they are now, and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you.
Janet, I have one. It's Maureen here.
Hi, Maureen.
Hello, thank you so much. You've shared so much value with us.
Thank you.
Just wanted to ask, when you said if you can't handle more customers, obviously in my case, clients,
yeah,
how can you get the existing ones to up their spend? Just elaborate a little bit more on that, how we can do it effectively without sounding as if we're overpricing our services.
Yeah, I'm sure when you're providing legal advice, I mean, perhaps even more than some other sectors, it's very important that you're not literally just chasing money because you're providing an actual service. So I guess that depends a little bit on whether you have packages that you offer them and whether there is something else that is relevant and useful. So an upsell or a cross-sell has to be relevant and useful. If you're just doing it for the sake of it, it's pointless. So I'll give you a simple example. If you're going to buy a torch, at some point you're going to want to use that torch. You're going to need batteries. So that is an appropriate and relevant upsell. Now, I'm going to give you an example of one that I've experienced and I don't like, which is Superdrug. Now, when I go into Superdrug, maybe I'm going to buy, I don't know, a packet of cotton wool balls. Maybe I'm spending £2. And what do they do to me when I get to the counter? Madam, would you like to buy some perfume? It's like 70 quid, 50 or something. And that's totally inappropriate. So sometimes I'll take a squirt of it because then I've got a free sample of perfume, but it's incongruent with what it is that I've bought. So in my view, that is a bad upsell and cross sell. So if someone's coming to you for the core legal advice stuff, do you ever offer, I don't know, like a follow-up consultation? Is that could be chargeable? I don't know enough about what you're legally allowed to do because of, the client relationship.
Yeah, no, you're right. I have given away so many free subsequent consultations that actually I then am reluctant to even say or dream of asking them to pay because it's my time, it's my knowledge, it's my skills.
It is.
Whether it's half an hour, an hour.
Yeah.
Because in their minds, the clients, they feel that they've paid for that first consultation, therefore all the others for some reason are free, but they're not free because I know larger firms charge every single second of their time.
Okay, so you're in a very unique position because you're in the legal profession. People will expect you, in their mind, you're kind of like up here because you know all this stuff. So you could take advantage of the fact that you're a trusted advisor, a consultant. And I suggest a technique that might work for you is to say this: I recommend, and then you recommend whatever you recommend. So a half-hour follow-up session. And you can be really upfront with it. You can say, look, without revealing it to everybody here, but presumably you've got an hourly rate. So you could say, I recommend that we have half an hour or an hour or whatever you think is appropriate follow-up session. It's not going to be quite my normal rate because it's a very important part of it. So it will be X amount of money, but that is normal practice after whatever it is you've just done for them. Now, a proportion of them will go, don't be silly. But what it will do is it will remove the time wasters, okay? And some of them will pay. So I think you'll find that you'll feel a little bit more in control and you'll get a little bit more money coming in and you'll have more time. So that would be my recommendation. You can chat with me afterwards if you want specific techniques if you like, but I would definitely do that in your case.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna.
Use.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Now, Amit has asked in the chat, could I elaborate on the value proposition aspect? So how can we make sure we are promoting the value with an example? Well, in its simplest terms, Amit, a value proposition is what does your thing do for the customer? Okay, so it has to be of value. And here you really need to understand the motivators for why people buy. So in simple terms, people either buy to move away from pain or to move towards pleasure. But there's all sorts of levels of this. So for example, earning more money is moving towards pleasure. Avoiding debt is moving away from pain. There's also things like being more healthy or getting something that's exclusive. So lots of different levels of motivators. So if you can understand what motivates your clients, then you can craft a statement that helps appeal to them based on the sort of pain that they will discover. And again, what I would probably suggest with you is have a chat with me afterwards. If you want to, then we'll see if we can work on a really simple value proposition for you. But I'll give you an example of mine, which is I help small business owners and entrepreneurs sell more without being pushy or yucky. So I've identified the target market. I've told you what I do, I help you sell more. And I've identified something that a lot of people are really worried about, which is coming across as being pushy or yucky. So that little positioning statement also builds in a value proposition. So you can, have a go at crafting it. It's a surprisingly difficult task, actually. A lot of people really struggle with it. But what value do you give to the customer? So I hope that's helped a little bit. Okay, any more questions from anyone?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay then. Right, so remember, if you do want more information about the training, pop either course in a text to me or just put that you're interested in the chat and I will get back to you. All of you, I have your email. So what I'll do after this is I will drop you an email with the link to this on my YouTube channel. So if you do want to rewatch it, you are more than welcome. And if there's no more questions, thank you for coming. And I'll see you all soon. Okay, then take care. Bye.
Thanks, Janet.
That's good, actually, Janet. Thank you so much. That's actually very
thank you.
good.
Appreciate you coming. Take care.
Okay. See you
Thanks,
later. Bye-bye.
Janet.
Thanks.
Thank you very
Bye.
much. Bye.
Bye.